Okay, so I guess this is episode 3, and I'm super pumped about this one as well. Specifically pumped to talk to Andrew Raharjo for this reason. The beauty of social media is that you'll be scrolling around, and I cannot remember whether it was on Instagram or YouTube, and I was trying to remember this morning. But I remember I was scrolling around, and I got served something that they thought I'd be interested in, and I saw a Dan Huff stamp on a tour case. And I was like, who is that and who has that? And that looks very official. And that's how I ended up finding your Instagram page. Then I did the deep dive into this amazing journey. Which, by the way, let me first say, Andrew is an unbelievable guitar player as well. So let's just say that.
Thank you.
And then on top of that, you're brilliant in terms of what you do from an electronic standpoint, but what you've done resurrecting. I was just watching a podcast with Leon Todd and Michael Nielsen talking about who has all this rat gear still, and you and I talked about how I used to have a lot of this stuff, and I sold it, of course, when it was cheap, and no one wanted it in like 1995, and I was like, what do I do with all this stuff? I wish I'd have kept it, but I was listening to their podcast yesterday, and I knew you and I were talking today, and I thought, how interesting. Someone better bring up Andrew, because I know he's got a ton, and we need to surface that. But Andrew, thank you for joining me. This is going to be officially episode 3. Last time we talked to Rich Rankin from James Tyler Guitars, and episode 1 we talked to John McCurry, the studio session touring legend that probably doesn't get enough credit. But you want to tell me just a little bit about your backstory, how you got into guitar, how you even got into digging all this stuff, and what your journey was like?
So, couple of points, right? Thank you, John, for, in this episode 3. It's very exciting, and then thank you for having me, for making this interview. I always start my journey as like a music listener, right?
Sure.
I think, you mentioned about the Leon Todd 2 episode. I watched that with Mike Nielsen. I think it's great, right? Talking about my background myself, right? I'm mainly engineer, right? I think like that's what I went to school for, multiple engineering degrees. And then that makes me really good at electronics. Came out like into any interviews, they always ask me like, what are your 3 traits? I'm a good listener, number 1. I'm good with electronics. And number 3 here, I can be a performer, right? Because I love to perform, right? Outside of, I enjoy electronics. But these days, people come to me, they want to consult, or they just want to talk, right? About their rack systems, how to build rack systems. There's like a lot of like Facebook groups about it. By far, I'm no to compare with other guys. Like they have much more stuff than me, right? I don't know,
buddy. You got a lot.
No. If you look at Mike Thorin, and other guys, right? I mean, the guys in the huge rack setup. I mean, they have more. They have more. I only have like some, right? Let's talk about it in the manner of rack systems, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So back in the 80s, to be a guitar player, it's super, super expensive. If you look at the pictures of Lukather's, Bradshaw's, right? And other rigs, right? I mean, these days, like the rig builder is like LA Sound Design, David Phillips, or each of the touring guys, they have their own guitar tech, right? Still like Fractals, Kemper, Neural DSPs, all Helix, right? All these guys, they're huge, right? Even Boss trying to get to this arena, right? So back in the 80s, to be a guitar player, especially a session guitar player, it's expensive. Yeah. It was expensive. Yeah. And here's the caveat though. Some of the rack system that I've seen, right, or even effects, just pure effects, right? It can come cheap, it can come very expensive. On the podcast, you talk about like that podcast. For example, the chorus from TC Electronic, the 121, the 1210, the infamous one. Dan Huff, it's bread and butter. You listen to Soul Provider, you listen to Mike Landau's, I'll demo it a bit, about it a bit, right? It's all that, right? With the micro pitch shift, that one or pitch change from SPX 90, you got that 80 staples. You got the compressor, you got the James Isler guitar, you got the mid boost, bam, you're that big boys club, right?
Yeah.
Back in the days, it was expensive. Now it can be expensive, especially that chorus. I've seen like a TSC tri-stereo chorus goes to about like $6,000, and the price they go crazy about that.
You're making me cry, Andrew. So I'm 40, and I told this to Rich Rankin. Like, I started playing instruments at a very young age. So I was 4 years old when I started taking piano lessons. I was 6.5 when I picked up guitar the first time, and so remember, like that's mid 80s, and so mid to late 80s as I'm, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And so for me, what my influences was listening to the radio and then finding out who these bands were. There was no internet, there was no Spotify, there was no, I didn't have a smartphone, there was nothing. So the only way to discover it was either to randomly pop into a music store or listen to the radio, or snag my mom's vinyl collection, essentially, which was a lot of 60s music. So and 70s. So it was like, what's interesting about it is you bring up a good point, because number one, I was trying to emulate everything I was hearing on those albums, in this symphonic, lush, fitting amongst all the synths and the Fairlights and trying to fit that guitar sound in there. I was listening to this and I was like, well, how the heck do I get that sound? Because there's not, no matter what effect you saw or pedal, you weren't getting what you're talking about. And I remember then I got to be about, 10, 11 years old, and I saved up and I started to pick Rat gear, and I was getting all this. By the time I was, 13, 14 years old, no one wanted the Rat gear anymore. And so it was like, everybody had done the shift, and we didn't need it. And I was selling off stuff for $50 and $75. But Andrew, I'm selling off stuff for $50 and $75 that I see on Reverb right now that's going for $2,000. And it's like, if I'd have just hung on to half of what I had, this would be a whole different conversation. I probably still would keep it. I don't even know if I'd sell it. But when you first picked up a guitar, and then talk about how that led to you wanting to know, because Rich and I had that discussion about reading liner notes to find out who these guys were, and then that inevitably leads you down the rabbit hole of how do I get their sound and all that, So it's like, how did you pick up a guitar, and then how did you get into Rat gear? Like, how did that all happen for you?
So I grew up in Indonesia. I think I was born here, grew up in Indonesia, and most of the influences in Indonesia music, right? We were always busy going to a festival. There was always like a guy who better than me at the festival, right? They like to, in the musical notes, right? You probably familiar with that. It's called like tutti, right? Tutti, it's like the key players plays the same thing like the guitar players, right? When I was like maybe like 10 or something, right? I listened to Hendrix and so on. Like I think earlier than there, right? And then Van Halen too, right? So Van Halen is big influence with me. And then also Paul Gilbert, like the rap videos. You remember that back in the days that he was like sitting on the swimming pool, and then all this stuff, right? Terrifying guitar trip, we were photocopying all of those and then studying it for going to the festival, so we can get like awards and so on. Long story short, there's like amazing guitar players, amazing environment, right? That it's like, what do you listen? What I listen to Winger, or or I listen to Mr. Big, right? Mr. Big was huge. Like Green Teen 60 Minds was Staples, Just Stick My Heart. I remember that. And also Bon Jovi was huge too. Actually, that was like I listened a lot, right? And then Billy Idol, right? And then all the pop songs, Shania Twain. That is actually another story, right? Yep. Because my mom was a big fan of Shania Twain, right? And then And that's where I get to know Dan Huff, right? And that like From This Moment song, right? And then who plays that guitar? Who plays actually that simple, but it's powerful, right?
Yep.
So, but at the time I was like, my musical influences grew from, Paul Gilbert to Chick Corea. So with widespread, very widespread. Can we go to jazz, right? Listen to Incognito, and then Earth, Wind, Fire, Kool and the Gang, right?
Love it.
I can try to play like Slipknot at one time, like Slipknot Dread, like very heavy, and then suddenly the next song is gonna be Kool and the Gang or Backstreet Boys.
Love
so
it.
it gives me
You're
like
versatile.
you want to be that kind of person these days, right? But I always immerse with the Toto, right? Toto is a great band, and then I always like, oh man, how can I get that sound, right? And then I think like I remember the collections of my first racks, especially like in Indonesia, it's 220 volts, right? I get a thinker to make this work because most of the racks were like 110 at the US, right? So that's I pushed myself to learn electronics, learn to repair these items, right? And then some of them went bust.
So that was really a big reason why you wanted to, was just the 220 versus 110 difference. You're like, I have to make this work, so I better figure out how all this. Was that kind of what you would say the beginning, just the power?
Yeah. That was the beginning, and then learn how to make a pedals first, right? And then from there it was like exponential. I was like crazy, like I was etching my own board, making this, making that, and then I never pay attention in the class about, electronics, like how to calculate XYZs or how to calculate impedance or how you design a circuit. From there, I was like, okay, I gotta study this. I gotta read books about this. I gotta study the engineering behind it. Why this design in certain ways, right?
How much documentation was out there about these systems?
There wasn't a lot, right? And then I'll tell you a funny story that Bob Bradshaw has the Rocktron RSB, which is the one that Dan Huff, I think like Mike didn't use it. Mike Landau didn't use it. Mike using the RS10 or RS with the expander. That's what I remember. I contacted Bob. Bob, why there's like a page missing on the manual? And said like, for all these years, you're the only guy who cares about it. You're the only guy who cares about it. Why bother, right? Why bother that missing page? Say like,
what was the missing page?
I did like a page about the latching system, but correct me if I'm wrong. I forgot. If you go to custom audio electronics, right, and then you look for RSB 18 or don't quote me on this page, something like 14, 15 are missing, and then when I read through the manual, I said like, this seems like disconnected. This seems like doesn't make sense. Like you explaining the patching systems, you don't need the actual cables through the patch, and suddenly it went into the RSB function for C1, C2, C3, C4. Like that doesn't make sense. There's something wrong here. So contacted Bob, send me the pictures of what it is, right? They say like, yeah, and then he replied, for all these years, you're the only one who cares about it.
Did he send it to you, the page?
Yeah, he sent it to me. Bob is really great, and then awesome. He explained to me like every time when I ask these people, right, all these guys, right, like, Bob, do you remember what you did for Dan? I got his rack right now, and then I'm trying to figure it out, like what it is, well, how to connect this, how to do this, right? And then Bob said like, Andrew, I don't remember. You gotta figure it out yourself, buddy. So,
you know how many years ago that was, Andrew? Are you kidding me?
I don't remember. I've done multiple big regs for these guys, that guys, right?
Yeah.
And then I gotta tell Bob, this is the picture how it looks like, and then we do like this kind of video, and then I open the top, the cover, and then we just go over the things, and then he said like, oh yeah, I remember this, I remember that, right? And then I captured that on my videos of restoring Dan's rack, right? I mean,
how cool is that though? I mean, I know you're going to talk about it, but you and I, when we spoke a couple weeks ago around the 4th. I don't necessarily know. I can't speak for all of them, but I think it's really amazing, and it's such an honor to talk to you because of all these people, though, that you've connected with in order to, because I can tell that it wasn't just about you doing it for your own personal gain, but almost like you wanted to restore this. Like you didn't want it to go just be tossed, and then you wanted to do it right. And you contacting Bob Bradshaw to see what he can remember, I think speaks to you wanting to do it accurately and wanting to do it correctly and trying to get as close to what we call, new old stock as possible. And, and
then the pain of restoring each of them, right?
That's what I was going to say.
That's another.
So let's go from you're growing up playing guitar. You're hearing all this music. Okay. When did you start buying let's go here. When did you buy your first piece of rack gear? And then how did that, you told me a story about being on these message boards and talking about racks and then hearing about the Dan Huff stuff. But let's start at when did you get your first piece of rack gear and start tweaking rack gear, the actual units?
That was way back in Indonesia, I would say. Way back. I think my first rack gear was like TC Electronic G Major, I believe.
Okay.
And it was even have an issue that it was had a freezing issue, like in Famous. Like I gotta turn it on, right, and then wait for I guess like 30-40 minutes if I'm lucky, right, and then the boot screen pops up, right, and then I've been doing that for years, right, and then I thought like, wow, this TC Electronic is so cool, right. In Indonesia, I never had Eventide, never had like SPX90, right.
Yep.
I got ADA MP1 Classic. It was next, which is that's its keeper until I have it today.
That one's close to my heart.
Yeah, that one is. I don't think I can ever part with it because it's not because I don't want to sell it. It's just has a lot of fixes, a lot of like wires and cables underneath it, and then not all the functions all work. So it will be sad if I give it to someone want to experience it all, right? Until I have time to fix it. But all the preset works. I think like those presets are amazing, better than original MP1, right? And MP1 has only 3 types, right? You get like clean, solid state, you get the crunch, and then you get the distortion. MP1 Classic has 4, I remember. You get clean, tube clean, you get round, what they call, or the crunch style, and then the distortion. And then after that, I got JMP1, that's 110, and then that was the start that, wow, I need to fix this, right? I need to change this to, it's not just easy as changing fuse or something. It's just, you gotta figure out what transformer, buddy.
So you start fixing these. You have a few pieces of rack gear as you're starting to do this, and you need to start tweaking it and repairing it, and the power is a big part of that. When do you start going from having 3-4 pieces of rack gear to I am going to restore? Like, how did this get? Was it the message boards? Because I'm assuming you're looking anywhere and everywhere to talk with folks that have restored one of them. You're trying to restore multiple ones from multiple different manufacturers. Like they can't all be the same. So did you just dive head first into the kind of the underground world of people that were still collecting these units and what they had found?
Yeah, you're right. And then also the thing here is I make new friends, right? So for example, if ADA MP1, right? Anything ADA stuff, the ADA depot, it's kind of like stale right now, right? But I got Dante in San Fran, right? He's a good friend too, right? He's I think like the admin, right? After jury passed, right? So I make new friends. I still keep contact with my friends. Like his name is Phil Gotti or Godte. He goes by online name Marshall JMP1. He's very good. He's very patient. He's like an engineer like me, right? He that's his probably day work, right? He's so really nice with electronics, and then he's so like really into ADA products like pitch track, STD, delay, and I learned a lot like how to debug it from him, right?
Okay.
And then I try to pass it the goods, paying forward to others. Like, hey, this is how you maintain your system. Here's how. It's not just simple as just changing the 3.3 volts coin, right? It can be like you're recapping the power supply sections. That's most of the common problems with these days, rack gear.
I was gonna say, how good are these manufacturers about digging up these manuals from units that they don't produce anymore?
They're good. Eventide is a good one. Yamaha, Roland, I think like you got your own, buddy. I repaired like SDE 3000. It was like I don't know, the longest that I had, like 6 months. 6 months just trying to fix like why it's dead, why the LCD doesn't work, right? And then look it up, the resource online, look it on YouTube, like did anyone else have the same issue like what I have, right? And then start from there. Yeah, that's a part of the journey, man. I think
that's so cool.
The point is not about the price of the rack piece, right? Or the second part is like the outcome of it, but connecting with people like you, connecting with other friends, connecting with all of these people that never showed up, or they're just like a bedroom guitar player, or even just local musicians, right? So I think that's the beauty of the journey. I
guess you have to understand, this is a little bit of an old guy in me going, I find this fascinating that this generation is so into this, and that someone that was born in 89, my younger brother was born in 87, like, you don't remember any of the decade, but you've got all this, and there's an appreciation for it. And I just think it's so amazing. So let's walk. You can walk through some tones, because I think everybody wants to hear that as well. But
yeah. So
and let's say, not just because Rich Rankin is such an awesome human being, but I am such a Jim Tyler fan. He influenced the way I build guitars myself. So we have to show off your guitar before we show off any rack gear.
So I do. This is another thing. So I got the Tyler when I was this already set up. This is already like all done, right?
Got it.
The Tyler story here is, I say like, wow, that's such an expensive guitar. How could I think about it, right? And then how am I gonna play with like my old Strat like this? This is also great. So don't get me wrong, I love this Strat too, right? It's like a vintage 63 Strat. So either play with that, like whatever Dan Huff has on the video, right? On the instructional video, or actually should I get a real Tyler, right? I was talking to the guys at the MJT, Warmit. I said like, dude, I don't think it's right. It doesn't do justice if I do just only a replica or a clone of guitar. I gotta go get Jim Tyler. I gotta go get this Tyler Dan Huff, right?
Yep.
I went to Wild West Guitar with Leroy, right, and Ian and Juan, right. That was the first time actually I played James Tyler guitar. But I said like, let's order one. I was just like during the Christmas time, said like, I just ordered one based on the spec. The guitar came, Wild West didn't open it, I just opened it, and then funny story about this guitar here is they sent me two certificates. The other one was wrong, so it was funny about it. Yeah. The guitar is very
double
funny,
the certificates.
Right? Yeah. But this is a guitar that I'll be really sad if it's broken, or
sure.
I can't part of, because it does have like the stack like the yellow Huff, right? And then it's funny because they're working on another guitar right now. It's called like Green Mean Schmear, because Rich liked the OJs. So he got that reference. It's coming, right? It's got the Huff stack, hot stacks, right? And then, believe it or not, these two are bridge hot stacks, not neck or bridge.
Correct.
Right? So they're like two bridge. So there's a trick here. So this is the one that I put as a jig with the Tyler mid boost over here. Sorry.
Yep.
Over here, right? So this is like the similar configurations like what I think Jim did it in the 63 Huff, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So what happened? Look at the positions of the switch. It's exactly the same, right? Now the features that I wanted to discuss. This is like very complex wiring, right? And then has a lot of cables on it. So series parallel, right? As we know, he likes to say it's split, which is that's fine. I mean, like whatever he wants to say, right? But it's not a split. It's series parallel,
series
right?
parallel. Yep.
Neck, mid, and then the bridge, right? Now here's the funny thing. So I talked with Rich, and then Rich talked with Jim to figure it out what's going on with this switch. If you watch Tom Bukovac, the episode 200, you'll see that how Dan show up the jangle machine, jangulator, like whatever you want to say it, right?
Yeah.
The jangle caster, right? If I want to make a clone of this guitar, I'm gonna name it like jangle caster because what does it mean? Dan always say like jangle, hey, it jangles, right?
The jangle notes in the background,
yeah. So the way how he does it is actually using this push. So if you see this, push one means like just work as a tone. Push another one, you get the neck and the bridge together. Now imagine you're on the middle pickup and then this is on. You get three of those. Just like, I don't know how to say it. It's just probably like a Telecaster on steroids.
I was going to say, what does that sound like?
Yeah, that's how it works, right? Then here's the magic comes. The mid boost. You pull up, mid boost comes in, right?
So now you're running all three.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a mid boost on, which for a lot of guys, at least for me, when I've used mid boost, I don't have it turned up a lot because it'll start to overwhelm. But that's interesting. So you technically would be running all three pickups with a mid boost in that setup.
Now here's the thing: there is no on the market. This is important. This is very important. There is no on the market that you can find like a linear algorithmic. So there's like three types of the potentiometers that I know, right? Number one is logarithmic, like it's very smooth like that, right? Very smooth taper, right? And then linear is just like straight diagonal line. And then also a C taper, which is the reverse taper, like the algorithmic, okay? So electronics 101, quick, right?
Got it.
So what happens here is if you have like a dual pots over here, right? Because you push pull and dual gang. So what happens here, the top, you want to have like the tone is like 500K, just regular, because you have like humbuckers, right? This is technically like 3 humbuckers. If you pull it up, right? You pull it up. So what happens here is the mid boost, if you have like 500K, that's going to be very muddy. That's going to be like doesn't sound good. Let's put it that way, right? Doesn't sound good. So you gotta use some electronic thinking again to reduce that into 50K, right? So put parallel resistors inside it. So as you can, I don't know whether you can see there, like a lot of resistors over here, right?
Oh yeah.
So put that resistors on the second pot that goes to the mid boost. Then boom, you get 50K, you get 500K. You make your own custom. I'm sure like if you plan to make it later on, like in the future mass productions, you can go to Borns and then they can make you 550, something like that. But again, that's currently what I have right now. And then it works. I already tested this out. This is amazing. Sounds amazing.
This is where I'm going to say, Andrew, go ahead and send me that one that you've already done, and I'll pop that into a guitar.
I don't know whether it fits. It's just like
I'll make it fit, bud. That is so cool. That is so cool. So how do you have, when you ordered the Black Classic Level 3 here from Wild West, did you have any special wiring, or did you just get it straight how it would normally come?
No, it's straight what it's normally come, right? So if I you don't get beat boost, but if you want to get that jangling,
I love that sound.
Yeah. and then that comes with the meat boost, right? So yeah, I play all day, all night with this guitar. I think like it's amazing. I love it. I think one of the comments that Rich told me that you wanted to get this guitar to be grow up with this guitar, or part growing with you. So I think that's a good comment to say, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I told Rich, I grew up with James Tyler dancing around me, essentially, without ever owning one. And my other favorite guitar that I love to pick up and play, there was a Tom Anderson that I just absolutely fell in love with.
Oh yeah,
was at a
Christopher Cross.
Yeah, there was a music store here in Omaha. Just absolutely loved it. The hardest thing for me would be not just the finish, because I love all the finishes. I told him if I had to pick one, the problem is I'd have to buy 10 of them because I love them all so much. But I said in terms of like the way I'd have it set up for what I play and I have to produce and I have to emulate for doing session solos, is I said it would really be a mix between the two Dan Huff guitars, and that being the yellow Dan Huff, obviously with the Floyd, and then the one you're holding. And I said, in a weird way, what I would love to do is combine them in that I would make it black. So I would actually stylistically, okay, but I would stylistically have it like yours. So the tortoiseshell pickguard, black. However, there would be a Floyd. So I said I would want to take the two. Okay, you see where I'm going? I want the wiring and the Floyd like the yellow Huff, but I want it in the black classic style. I do want a lot. I said the only reason is the type of music that I play, where I've got to do a lot of like Mark Diglio and Doug Aldrich stuff, and where there's a lot of dives. It's not that I don't trust.
I need to credit this for the Tyler guys, right? Like Tucker, and then also Rich, and also Gil. Gil is the master builder, right, at the Jim Tyler. So they make this guitar is so in tune. Even though I dive it multiple times, it's so in tune. I don't know why.
One of the things Jim did really well, among many things that he innovated that most people don't know, that he was really one of the first, if not the first, to ever come up with it. But him spending so much time with bridges, and from a luthier perspective, it's what he did from a cutting the nut correctly, and that being a standard of theirs, to where when you bend and that thing goes out and it can recover because it's not going to get caught on anything. And then and then also, before he had locking tuners, before we have these hip shot locking tuners and everything else, he found out a way, okay, if I stick this through here, I can wrap this around here and create my own lock. And what that would do is, as you tremolo down, then you're not. So most people, when they're young, they wrap it too high, and the problem is that'll never stay in tune, because once you bend and the string comes unraveled, it can't pull all that string back around it, so it'll never come back to tune. And so he's doing all these things, and that's why it doesn't. I told Rich, I'm like, look, I trust that a non-Floyd Tyler will stay in tune even if I dive bomb it. For me, it's just more comfort that I know that I've got a Floyd there.
You want to go up. You want to go up. Right?
I'm going to go up and down, and it's a bucket list thing. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow, but it is. If I did it, that is something that I would do, is try to combine those two Huff style guitars.
If you want to do like. But if I turn off the, let's say like the chorus, right? Still get that like jangly country sound, right? So without the mid boost, very thin, but get some mid boost.
So great. Andrew, why does that sound so much like Dan Huff? Is that his rig or something?
No, I don't like Dan Huff. No, I'm not Dan Huff. I didn't sound like a Dan Huff. It's just like me.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Can we real quick? Okay, so start from the beginning. How did the mission to put this all together start? Let's start at the beginning. How did you start? You even start thinking about I'm gonna resurrect Huff's because correct me if I'm wrong. This could have ended up in a junkyard. Is that correct?
That's correct. I have another group in Indonesia that we talk a lot about rank systems, right?
Sure.
And then they're like musicians. There's also like other collectors, right? And then someone on that group saying that, oh, there's a video homeschooling that showing Dan Huff rags that's gonna Tom Bukovac, Uncle Larry, right? It's gonna get thrown away or they want to sell it, right? So that was like, not for me. Don't think so. Like that's not me. That's not for me, right? But the more I think about it, well, you get some stuff. You get like the Pasek Unity. They got like the Studio Preamp. They got the Bradshaw. I think like the key here is the Bradshaw. This Bradshaw, it's actually the crux of dance tones back in the past. Last of the Runaways, right? Because it has the songs for it. And then I just recently discovered that each of the, I think like I'm going to make a video about it. Each of the songs has a specific preset or program change command. So what it is here, it sends a message to the systems because you have like multiple systems like XPX90, H3000s, and then you got, I think like he has quad reverb in the past, Chord 8.3 in the past, right? And then TC 2290 that sends out to the system, right? Everything changed to the system. So what happened here is that the system changed, right? But the preset is still here. The system can change. The whole system can change, right? So that was getting me excited. Like, well, yeah, I think like I could restore it, right? And then went to Franklin, met with Brandon, didn't meet Dan, right? Didn't meet Tom, but you know, we get connected for some way, right? And then that's where
where was this? So everybody knows, you went to Nashville. Franklin obviously is a suburb of Nashville. You went to Nashville. Where was, before this was going to go to a junkyard? Who had this? Like, and where was it? What was it? Where was it sitting?
That was in the Castle Rock studio, or before Castle Rock, I think it was in storage or somewhere, right? From the guy named Brandon Hood. So Brandon, I think like has a work together with Dan Huff, right? Okay. I think Brandon Hood is the guy that I think like can be the next big producer, right? They sign a deal with Warner Music, right? And then they do some journey on making the music together. So that's really cool. And Brandon had this, right? And then the deal was trying to get a guitar for Christmas for Dan, raising up the money, but you know, taking this away. And then the thing that he doesn't want this to go here is just somebody took it and then trash it out, right? Somebody wants to restore it. Someone is really want to, you know, bring it back together, right? I will put myself here as like more effects historian or whatever you call it, like curator, right? And that's why like my idea here, once it's done, everything done, it's just put it either in the museum. We have like a museum over here in San Diego in Carlsbad. So everyone can see it, everyone can enjoy it, everyone can learn about it, get inspired, right? I think that was my main motivation of it. And that's where I like, okay, let's restore it. Let's put some effort to it. Let's put some, manpower to it. And then there you go. That's from there.
Was there a story about you packing up a truck, though? I thought you told me, and you were a little nervous driving with that thing.
So I rent a truck, right? I got a rental truck, and then load everything, right? Load everything on the back of the truck, right? It was quite like huge, nervous, right? But I was smart enough that take everything out from here, right? And then pack it securely, right? And put like on the not the same, like you put this on the rack case, and then you you lay down. No. You take it one by one. It's just only empty rack case, right? At the time, the rack case wasn't like this. The time like rack case was really rotten, right? So I got to pack everything separately, right? And then pack it securely. Went to Home Depot and then got the asked the guys like, hey, can I get like a free boxes or boxes that you don't need, right? Give it to me. Got some and then pack it out and then put it UPS and then go.
So you get it back and now you're looking at it. First and foremost, did you go, okay, there's stuff missing in here from Dan's original rack. I need to research what's missing and then go get that stuff? Or did you start fixing the original stuff? Or how did that process work of going, okay, I have what I have and now I have to go further?
Okay, before I answer that, I want to share a screen with you. This is how it's all started, right? It started taking out the cables. The cables are the key. The cables here are the crux of how decoding what patch it is, how it goes, and so on, going to the RSB. RSB is a Rocktron Bradshaw switching, right? So the back of it has a label, and then I get to document that one by one, where that's go, what the other end goes, right? I was lucky enough to figure it out that label is still, printed nicely. I think kudos to Bob. Bob did a really good job on this.
You're like, thank God I can read this.
Yeah. And then it comes with 2 patch bays, okay? So this is like there's like a patch bay rack over here, right? That it goes to another second unit. So the rack originally has 2, right? Not just only 1, have 2, right? And then as you can see here, it starts with like, he has like a Marshall, like 59s or like JMP1. In Shania Twain, he has like JMP1 that I remember. And then, of course, like he's going to Triaxis after that. So these 3 is mainly like his preamp, right? And then, of course, the studio preamp from Mesa, right? Then goes to the reverb. The original reverb was the PV, I believe, the PV failverb, right? So no MIDI, right? But at some point, he used Lexicon in the past when Giant toured in Europe, I believe. And then goes to compressor. This is like after action compressions. And then, again, manual helps. From 1 to 5, they're like chained together. It can be chained, can be deparallelized over that. And then it starts from loop 6 afterwards. So 1 to 5, they break. 6 to 10, they're all together like 1 to 5. Now, usually what happens here from 5, you go to the Rocktron Hush, right? The program Hush that you can program through the MIDI, right? From the board. Then you come in, the out from the Hush, it breaks to 3 different things input, like one of the tri-stereo chorus and goes to one into the boost. Now, here's the funny thing about this. This has no loop. But they're using it like as just an extra volume added from the latest Dans, right? I think that's what's it's quite interesting. Then go into 290, go to H3000. Loop 9 is empty. However, on the board, on the switchboard, it says tone, right? Tone can be anything. Can be parametric EQ. Can be. I thought like, okay, you might control another amp like Fender Tone Masters or something like that. But no, I think like it's more like, because in his rack previously, like way back when he had like 2 rack systems, he has a 1140 or the 1240, the dual stereo EQ parameter EQ to soften out the top bottom, so make it like spread out the guitar, right? But since I'm running it as a mono in this case, right, so I put like send and return here using the 1140 parametric EQ. That helps a lot when, when I turn on the mid boost on the Tyler, it helps a lot to give that top, right? And then how parametric EQ works, right? It goes to your frequencies. It goes automatically to your frequency, different than any graphic EQ. It's always a set, right? So that's there. Then going to SPX90, And then from SPX90, that goes also to the chorus, right? The input from the SPX90 actually quite interesting. It goes from the chorus, from the, I think he has the TSC from the original one, the Chuck Monty one, the original, the OGs, the one that I told you like can be like cost like $6,000 for it.
Yeah.
Which is that's insane, right? If you go to like eBay Japan or some Yahoo Japan auctions, they're now in there, right? And then I know there's like a YouTube video about TSC online, right? But the journey of how they make tri-stereo chorus sound, Dynamite Piano, or
Dynamite Piano.
Dynamite Piano, right? That's where it was started, Chuck Monty. Anyway, from there, this is the interesting part. The output from 6 to 10, from 6 to 10. Mainly, they go to the mixers, and then Dan has like this Pasek Unity, the Australian company, that I think they rename it with a different brand to make like a speaker or something today. But as you can see here, it goes like mix 3, 4, 6, 5, right? It's been, and then you can. I don't have the label for the cable, but it does show the label where it goes, that's really helpful. One of the interesting things here is also the way of how he used the volume control. So the volume control here is he used the volume comes in from the guitar, right? From the wireless, and then it goes out to the preamp actually. So the RSB, the rack system does have like a preamp, and that's also another, I would say like another element that makes it jangly, right? So it goes there, then the output from there goes to the first loop, which is the Marshall loop, right? Then it breaks for the second part of it, which is they call like post volume. The post volume input goes to the output from the reverb, and then the output from the post volume goes to the DBX, right? And remember the tri-axis, they go to the Rock Mod Kasha. I just don't have that, and then I just use like tri-axis because I get like a better sounding out of it. Now, interestingly enough, that this patch also has like direct out using like the Jensen transformer, right? So it can go to the PA system, and also doing like the loop 2, loop 3 returns, controlling the channels of the Rock Mod and then Studio Pre, and then those are like controlled through the MIDI actually. Pretty cool. Right, so inside this, it has like a solid state relay that can control how it behaves of like the controller of the channel switchings of each of the units, like the Rock Mod and then Studio Pre. Studio Pre has like that clean and rhythm. Same with the Rock Mod, right? Clean and lead tone or something like that. But yeah, that's a quick overview about what it is, right? And then start from here, restoring each of them.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so you get it there, and then what's missing? Like as you sit down and look at it, what you grabbed from Franklin, from Nashville, what are you going like? Okay, I got to repair this. I don't even have this. Like what was that process like?
So now, from the Franklin, I think I only get the Studio Pre, I remember, and then the PV Velverb, and then this Rocktron, and then the unit Pasek, and then I think like SG 330, the Roland Stereo Echo, and then Quad Reverb, which is I use on another rack. That one it's another magic. That one I'm quite worried that if the battery runs out and I'm gonna lose all the preset, which is I'm quite scared about it because it does have like a Dan Huff original, like Giant 3 preset or something like that. And I got also
from the Giant 3 album. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That one is worth another content itself. I mean, like the way of how he makes the vibrato, Leslie, and everything. It does have like I need to MIDI dump it seriously. That one is like golden, amazing. Even though Quad Reverb you can get it cheap, right? but the preset itself is there, like it's very dialed in. Line level instruments coming in, coming out, like boom, amazing. Like if you see like the video with me with Sean Tynan, I use it because I let Sean use this rack, right? And then I use my, my built on rack that's similar to it. I didn't have it didn't come with the H3000, didn't come with the 2290, didn't come with the Lexicon, didn't come with the Tri-Stereo Chorus. I gotta find that out, right?
So you're having to find all that stuff, like
yeah. I remember my H3000. I got it from Canada, and then it was like quite pretty deal. That one, it was like 1,200. Even that H3000 these days like 3,000 plus, right? Yeah. It's so expensive because the time to restore it's also time consuming, right? You go into Studio Biz or something like Studio Electronic Biz in LA. David Kulka, yes, sorry. Yeah, he does like amazing repair of it, but he's so busy with it. And then do like kitchen sink mod and so on for H3000. That's a staple for recording for sure, right? H3000. Yeah. You cannot get part away with any plugins because you can buy the plugins, but the plugins is just limited. You don't get like all this like H3 3500, all the presets. I mean, unless you have money to go H9000, which is or H1000, that's the higher end of Eventide products. Anyway, so Eventide came out broken. Came out like it was buzz. It was bad. Really bad. So I gotta recap it. I gotta do like take the signal out of it, and then take the signal generators comes to it, and then figure it out like what's the issue, and then boom, the issue is the power supply. Replace it, and then the guy refund me half, so get like $600 back, which is pretty cool. So technically, I got the unit for $600. Broken. 2290 was broken. I got from Guitar Center. I remember because I've been wanting it so bad. And then apparently, like, it was a return. It was listed for like, I don't know, 1,700 or something. I got a pretty good deal on that. Like they gave me, I don't know, another $300 back. So 1,300. I still pay whatever the market price today, like on the Reverb. But still, again, gotta do some repair to it. The only repair was very simple. It's actually like the cable inside it was loose. So just plug it back in, and then boom, you get a signal back. So that's pretty cool. T290. SDE 330 from Dan, I think I remember, has a broken volume pot. So gotta replace that volume pot. And the button cannot be like turn on, turn off because it's always stay momentary. If you want to turn on, you gotta like put a tape on it. That's quite silly. But figure it out how to replace that buttons, change the batteries, boom, work as great. Velver was quite challenging because I got to do some transformer find out. Call PV doesn't support it anymore. So call Mercury Magnetics. They're friends with me too. I mean, like I always order great stuff from them with it's super fries, but it has like snowflake dust, I call it. But it always works. Mercury Magnet is awesome. I love those guys, right? And they say like, yeah, that's not the right transformer. It's just only a reverb transformer. So I gotta figure it out how to use it. Check out like the transformers are fine. It was just the cap, the power caps went bad. So replace those. Reverb works, tubes works. So I'm quite pleased about that because it has a very nice, I think like tremolo or something like that on that rack effect. And then he used it a lot in, I don't know, in many recordings. Dan used that unit a lot for sure. The PV fail for, I know. Another one is the Mesa stereo power amp. Huge power amp. I think like it's 295, I believe. Like the 200 watts, the one that that runs into like blasting to your face, like blasting to your neighbors. That's the right power amp for this rack unit because it has like a clear, pristine clarity out of it, right? I'm using ADA power amp, right? That only 200 watts, so 100 watts each. It's still good enough, right? But the one that I got from Dan, old Rick, was that Mesa power amp. that is so huge. Maybe not 295 or 400 or something. That's huge. That's loud. You can crank it up, and then that one was broken. When it came, right, it like burst out the fuse right away, right? It broke the fuse right away. Turns out was the spread cap was broken, and then a couple electrolytic tabs was broken. So it's easy fix. It was easy, and then changed the tubes. Luckily, I got the spare Mesa tubes. Turn it on, boom, works. So I still have those, but I haven't racked it yet. But I mean, he used that, and he used VHT. So that's also like, you know.
I was wondering about the VHT.
VHT and then PV Classic. He used that, and then I don't know, man. I mean, like, he's Dan Huff, so he has a lot of tons of things, man. I mean, seriously, he used Matchless now and then too, right?
Yeah.
The Head 30s, that's also loud too, right? And then he used the 59 JMP's Classic Tone for Time to Burn to still use that. PV Classic, I think his staples, right? So I think yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it that I got from him. Yeah.
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 How many, if you counted all the individual units that you've had with you, so when I say individual units, I mean individual units on a rack, how many do you think that you have currently right now? And then how many have you had come through your shop total since you started doing all this?
I don't count. It's just like, oh, I need this, right? I just go get it. Oh, if it's overpriced, then I'll wait, right? Like tri-stereo cores, I get the full tone Turk, right? That one goes crazy. Like I told you at the beginning, right? It goes like $3,000. It was like only like, you know, used back then was like only $800. Used,
yeah,
right?
I know.
And then new was like 1,600 or something. But right now it's just like skyrocketing like crazy. I mean, like it's nuts.
If somebody came to you and said, okay, what are the must-have racks if I'm going to start off rack collecting, and I am into Dan Huff and Michael Landau and Lukather and Michael Thompson and all these guys, like, you know, and I'm going to do it. If you were going to build out one with actual original gear, what would you tell them are the most important ones to start with?
The first and the most important bit is not about the racks, it's about your playing.
Yeah.
That's going to be
yes.
like, it's going to be it. But if you really already got your playing, everything's like all nailed out, right? Then I will say like SPX90. Start with that. It's cheap.
Okay.
It does have like everything you need. Guys are like chorus, symphonic, right? Everything. And you can do like pitch 2, probably get 2, right? And then get a nice power amp, you know, any power amp should be able to work, and get a mixer. That's probably like next. But SPX90, it's going to be like a start. SPX90, and then refurbish it or whatever, right? You can find. It's cheap. It was really expensive back then, but right now I think like it's quite cheap. Like you can get it for like 150 or, you know, less than that. Yeah, I think that's a start. Rocktron units are also amazing. Rocktron units like the IntelliFlex, it does have like 8 poly chorus or something. That is going to be your tri-stereo chorus. It can be like cheap too. And Chameleon Rocktron also can do that too. That's potentially like another cheap one. Power supply. You gotta need that too, right? You like the power strip, right? Yep. And then have a great amp. That's it. The key here is with the amp, you just need to slave it out or use like 2 notes coming to it, right? So the key, the crux here is you should be able to do wet, dry, wet systems with usually wet, dry, wet. You have like 3, right? 3 speakers, but sometimes like you can mix it well using the mixer to make the wet, dry, wet in 1 speaker, or you have like 90-watt speakers in 2, and then they like independently for all the wet effects, right? And then your top speaker, like mine here, is just only the dry effects. That's another way to do it. You get great playing. You get those 2 to get started. Boom, you get that session sounds.
How many full racks now is sitting in your home? Like I know we have this one here. Do you how many do you have completed? And are keeping? Are you assembling more? What's the process right today?
I do have 3. I try to keep it down into 3, but I think I can make another 1 because I have all the pieces again right now and then, right? But I do have 3 Huff, and then I have another one that I mainly use with the Red 7 MSLM, and then I use actually that's actually newer stuff. That is more like one machine that can play all with the rack system.
Sure.
This one is like, 80s period specific era, right? So there's I'm not gonna change the controller, right? Even though I can change the controller into the better one, right? Like the RGM, for example. But yeah, I just keep it what it is for the Huff, and then the other one is the one that has the Red 7 MSLM. I make a video about it too, explaining that, this is actually pretty good because you can do wet, dry, wet, and then control everything through the Mastermind. So RGMs, which is pretty cool. The similar from John Petrucci to Kenny Wayne Shepherd. You can play all, right?
I definitely want to end with 2 things. Number 1, talk about your plan for the museum. I think that's really cool, what you were telling me about possibly doing with the rack you restored.
Yeah, so we in San Diego, we have a museum of making music here, local, right? And they are part of NAMM, right? Or actually it's NAMM office there in Carlsbad. And it's just, they have like museum for the items to make the music, right? Any kind of items that you can find, synthesizers, mandolin, ukuleles, actually, guitars, right? I just see like, hey, where's the rack stuff? You guys don't have the rack stuff, right? So talk to the guys over there, the curator, that say like either 2 ways: either you give it to the museum if it's worthy enough to give it to the museum, or actually to loan it. I think I'm gonna do loan it because they can. This is huge items, right? And then if they're gonna own it, they're gonna maintain this, and then no one is gonna be able to maintain this. It's hard, right, to restore it and so on. So if you loan it at some point, like you need it, you can get it back, right? So I haven't talked much about it since after, I think like somewhere in May after the NAMM, right? I think like NAMM was in April, that I remember. But it's in plan, right? It's just like I haven't finished patching up everything, so I still like want to figure it out, the patching systems, right? Like what presets on that SPX90 that Dan used for Innocent Days, or what preset that he used for It Takes Two, that songs and so on, right? That's the plan for. After that, I think after everything's captured, I make like the final content of it. Then I think like it's just waiting for the time that if the museum gives a go, like bring it to the museum, put it there, hang the Tyler guitars. Probably I hang this guitar.
Well, if it doesn't go in the museum, my address is 189. The last thing I want to ask you is, this has been awesome, by the way. I can't thank you enough for your time.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to share this with people. So we can get a close up of the rack. I know everyone's going to want to see it up close. I'll be like, why didn't you ask him?
So you get DBX, you get the line mixer, you got the TC, you get the 2290, right? You get the Yamaha, you get the Eventide. This is so wonderful machines, the Eventide over here, because this actually, can do everything that you need here, Like if you do like the programs, like a lot of here, like the same, similar to like the pedal format, like the time factor or the mod factor. So yeah, this is pretty cool. PCM 70. So this one I believe has firmware 3.0. But if you go to the registers, it still has like that circular delays from 2.0, so which is pretty cool. Tri-axis, studio preamp, and then the JMP1, Brett Chow, as you can see here, and then the ADA power amp down over here. So, and then the interesting part here is on the back. So you can see on the back. Here's my tri-stereo chorus, right? here, over here. Let me turn on the lights. Here you go. So as you can see here.
Yeah.
Right? So you get the tri-stereo chorus, you get the poly effects from Australia. This actually can do many things. It can do the vibrato, whatever I need, right? And then the custom audio electronics for the splitter, right? And then all the wiring here is all, I try to be as clean as I could. As here, right?
Looks great, dude.
I'm using the Mogami line that's the same similar to like the stump boxes, and then the BTPA like the plug, right? The square plugs, right? But it's just like very thin, very nice, low noise. So
yes,
that's what you get. And then from the top, you know, 2 power strips mainly. So the radial and then the Furman with the, like,
conditioner.
Yep. So that's pretty much about it. That's pretty much like
awesome.
Yeah. And if I want to do stereo wet dry wet, the Bogner on the top. So the output from the output from the loop number 3, right? It's split. One going to the power amp over there, right? And then the rest of it going to the effects, right? So cool. That from the power amp from the Bogner going into another cabinet or going direct, right? So you get like a dry signals from 3 selections of the amplifiers. Then it goes to like, but I'm not using the preamp from the Bogner. I'm just using it as a power amp, separate power amp, right? I can use any power amps, right? It's just that's the way how it is. Ooh.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I hope it's insightful for you.